I didn't think much of the rules when I first saw them. That was probably my first mistake. At the time, they looked like the kind of thing old employees made up to scare new hires. A joke that had been passed around so long nobody remembered who started it. The paper was yellow around the edges, folded twice, and taped to the inside of a drawer under the front desk. There were 7 rules written on it. Not safety rules. Not exactly. There was nothing about fire exits, or where to keep the spare keys or what to do if a pipe froze. They were the sort of rules that made you laugh once, then look over your shoulder before you finished reading. I still have the paper. I keep it inside an envelope in my glove box now, even though I don't drive up that road anymore. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe because part of me thinks I'll need it again. Maybe because I'm afraid if I throw it away, I'll forget one of the rules. And I can't afford to forget them. Not after what happened at Black Pines Lodge. Not after what I heard on the radio last week. My name is Aaron Bell. I'm 29 years old, and until 2 months ago, I was working nights at a grocery warehouse outside Missoula. It wasn't a good job, but it was simple. You scanned boxes, loaded pallets, listened to the same 3 forklift alarms all night, and went home sore. Then the warehouse cut half the night crew. I got a week's pay and a handshake from a supervisor who wouldn't look me in the eye. I had rent due in 11 days. My truck needed new brake pads. My mother had just finished a round of physical therapy that insurance only half covered. I was not in a position to be picky. That was when my friend Wade called me. Wade and I had gone to high school together. He was one of those people who drifted through life without seeming worried about anything. He had worked trail maintenance, campground check-ins, snow removal, road crews, and a summer at a fire lookout. He knew people in every small county office and every seasonal job program in western Montana. He called me on a Wednesday morning while I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of instant coffee and a list of places I had already applied to. "You still looking for work?" he asked. "That depends," I said. "Is it legal?" "Mostly." I almost hung up. He laughed and said, "I'm kidding. It's a caretaker job. Night shift. Easy money." I asked where. He said, "Black Pines." I knew the name, but only barely. Black Pines Lodge used to be a ski resort up near the edge of the national park, about 40 miles past the last real town and another 12 miles up a private service road. My father had mentioned it once when I was a kid. People used to go there in the 70s and 80s. Small lifts, cheap cabins, a restaurant with a stone fireplace. Nothing fancy. Then a bigger resort opened 2 valleys over, and Black Pines slowly died. The lifts stopped running. The cabins were shut down. The restaurant closed. The county argued over the road. A developer bought it, then sold it. Another company bought it and tried to turn it into a retreat center, then gave up. As far as I knew, the place had been abandoned for years. "It's not abandoned," Wade said when I told him that. "Not all the way. They keep a skeleton staff there through winter so pipes don't burst, trespassers don't burn the place down, and insurance stays happy." "Through winter," I said. "It's not bad. It's in the mountains." "Correct. In February. That is usually when winter happens." I asked him why he wasn't taking it. He went quiet for half a second, just long enough for me to notice. Then he said, "I did. Last month. I picked up days at the county garage now, so I'm out. They need somebody for nights. 4 nights on, 3 off. You sit at the front desk, check cameras, keep the furnace room logged, make sure nobody breaks in. That's it." "How much?" he told me. It was more than I had made at the warehouse. Not a lot more, but enough. I asked him what the catch was. He said, "It's boring." That was the first lie he told me. The second was worse. He said, "You'll be fine." I met the manager the next day at a diner off Highway 12. His name was Harlan Pike, and he looked like a man who had spent most of his life outdoors without ever enjoying it. Late 60s, gray beard, deep lines around his mouth, hands that made the coffee mug look small. He wore a faded Black Pines Lodge jacket with a broken zipper. He didn't interview me as much as check that I had a pulse and could drive in snow. "You worked nights before?" he asked. "For years." "Ever work alone?" "Sometimes." "Ever been snowed in?" "Not at work." He nodded like that answer mattered. Then he slid a clipboard across the table and told me the job started Friday. I asked if there was training. "Wade will show you the desk," he said. "I'll show you the boiler room. After that, it's repetition." "What about guests?" He looked at me. "There are no guests." That should have made the job sound easier. It didn't. Black Pines Lodge was hard to find even with directions. The main highway ran along the river for a while, then climbed into dense pine. After the last gas station, there was a county road with no lights and no shoulder. After that, there was a chain service gate with a keypad bolted to a wooden post. The code Harlan gave me worked on the second try. The gate groaned open slowly, dragging snow with it. The road beyond was plowed, but only barely. Tall banks rose on both sides like walls. The pines pressed close enough that my headlights hit branches more than road. There were no cabins, no mailboxes, no power lines I could see. Just the narrow road and the white tunnel of my headlights. It took 20 minutes to reach the lodge. When it appeared, I almost missed it. Black Pines sat at the base of a long dark slope, built from logs and stone, 3 stories high in the middle with 2 lower wings stretching out on either side. The roof was steep and heavy with snow. Most of the windows were boarded from the inside, but a few glowed yellow near the entrance. The old ski lift towers climbed the mountain behind it, black skeletons disappearing into the trees. The parking lot was plowed in one rough oval. There were 3 vehicles there. Wade's dented green Subaru. Harlan's white pickup. A county maintenance truck with a cracked windshield. A sign near the entrance read, "Black Pines Lodge. EST 1968. Someone had spray-painted over the word "lodge" years ago, but the paint had faded enough that both words were readable at once. It looked like the place couldn't decide whether it was still open or long dead. Inside, the lobby smelled like old wood, dust, and heating oil. The ceiling rose 2 stories over a stone fireplace big enough to stand in. The furniture had been pushed against the walls and covered with white sheets. A row of antlers hung above the reception desk. The floorboards creaked under my boots. The whole place had that cold building feeling, even though the thermostat said 64. Wade was behind the desk, eating chips from a vending machine bag and watching a tiny security monitor. When he saw me, he grinned too hard. "There he is," he said. "Night man." I looked around. This place is bigger than I thought. Only the lobby, West Hall, East Hall, kitchen, staff rooms, and boiler room are active, he said. Everything else is locked or sealed off. Sealed off? Water damage. Mold. Old resort problems. He walked me through the routine. The front desk had an old computer with a property management program that no one used anymore except to log maintenance notes. Beside it sat a radio base unit, a landline phone, a ring of keys, and a binder labeled Night Log. The security system had 8 cameras. Camera 1, parking lot. Camera 2, front entrance. Camera 3, lobby. Camera 4, east hallway. Camera 5, west hallway. Camera 6, kitchen back door. Camera 7, boiler room hall. Camera 8, lift house. Wade told me camera 8 froze sometimes because the cable ran outside. My duties were simple. Every hour, check the cameras. Every 2 hours, walk the ground floor. At midnight and 4 a.m., go down to the boiler room and record the pressure readings. Do not go outside unless there is a visible emergency. Do not open guest rooms. Do not use the old elevator. Do not mess with the west wing beyond the red fire door. Simple. Harlan showed up around 7 and took me downstairs. The boiler room was below the kitchen, down a narrow set of concrete steps. The air smelled like metal, damp insulation, and hot dust. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The boiler itself was huge, green, and patched in places with newer metal plates. Harlan showed me 2 gauges. "Write these down at midnight and 4, he said. "If this one drops below 12, call me. If this one goes over 30, call me and leave the building." That got my attention. Leave the building? It won't happen. But if it does, then don't stand here discussing it. He showed me the breaker panel, the water shutoff, and a red emergency phone mounted on the wall. "Does that work?" "It calls the ranger station repeater." "Not 911? He looked at me again. "911 takes too long up here." I couldn't tell if he was joking. By the time we got back upstairs, it was dark outside. Not late evening dark. Mountain dark. The kind that presses against windows like something physical. Harlan put on his gloves and said he'd be in the staff cabin behind the lodge until morning. Wade was leaving. That surprised me. "You're not staying for the first night?" I asked. Wade avoided my eyes again. "You'll be okay," he said. "Just follow the list." "What list?" He opened the center drawer of the front desk and tapped the underside. "There's a paper taped in there. Harlan won't talk about it. Just read it." Harlan was by the door, pulling his cap down. "Wade," he said. Wade closed the drawer. "Yeah," he said. "I'm going." Before he left, he put a hand on my shoulder. He had stopped grinning. "I mean it," he said quietly. "Don't try to be brave up here. Brave people make extra work for everybody." Then he walked out. The front doors shut behind them. The lobby settled. For the first time, I heard the building clearly. The hum of old lights. The tick of baseboard heat. Wind moving under the eaves. A slow pipe knock somewhere above the lobby ceiling. I stood behind the desk in my coat and listened until the sound became normal. Then I opened the drawer. The paper was exactly where Wade said it would be. It had been taped to the wood with clear tape that had gone cloudy and brittle. I peeled it loose carefully. The handwriting was neat, blocky, and old-fashioned. The top said, "Black Pines Night Staff Rules. Read before shift. Do not remove from desk." Under that were 7 rules. Keep the lobby clock wound. If it stops at 2:17 a.m., do not leave the front desk until it starts again. Do not answer the radio if the caller uses your full name. If camera 8 shows the lift house lights on, turn the monitor away and do not check again for 13 minutes. If a guest asks for room 214, tell them once that the lodge is closed. Do not say it twice. Do not follow music coming from the west wing. If you see fresh snow tracked inside but no one on camera 2, lock the office door and count backward from 100. At 4:33 a.m. Do not look at the mirror behind the bar, no matter who you think is standing in it. At the bottom, someone had written, "They learn routines. Change small things when you can." I read it twice. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. It wasn't. I laughed because that was the only normal response I could think of. A remote abandoned ski lodge with strange night rules taped inside the desk drawer. It was too perfect. It felt like something Wade would make up because he knew I listened to creepy podcasts at work. I took a picture of the paper with my phone and texted him. Real cute. The message didn't send. No service. The lodge had Wi-Fi, technically, but Wade had warned me it came and went. The front desk computer had a hardline connection to the router, but there was no browser shortcut and no reason to use it. I put the paper back in the drawer. Then I started my first shift. For the first couple of hours, nothing happened. That's the part people leave out when they tell stories like this. Most of the night was nothing. Long stretches of boring nothing that made every little sound feel important. At 9, I checked the cameras and wrote, "All clear," in the log. At 10, I walked the ground floor. The east hallway had old framed photos of skiers from decades ago. People in bright jackets, smiling in deep snow, holding wooden skis. The west hallway was darker. The red fire door at the end had a padlock and a sign that said "No access, structural damage." The kitchen was empty except for stainless counters, unplugged appliances, and a freezer that had been left open. There was a back door with 3 deadbolts. At 11, I heated soup in the microwave behind the desk and ate it from the container while watching snow blow sideways across the parking lot camera. At midnight, I went to the boiler room, wrote down the gauges, and came back up. Everything was fine. By 1:30, I was getting sleepy. Not falling asleep sleepy. Just heavy around the eyes. I made bad coffee in the staff room and walked laps around the lobby. I looked at the old fireplace. I looked at the covered couches. I looked at the antlers above the desk. Then I noticed the lobby clock. It hung above the front doors. Big round face, brass pendulum, dark wood case. It looked older than the lodge. The time was 1:43 a.m. The second hand moved. The pendulum didn't. I stared at it for longer than I should have, then remembered the first rule. Keep the lobby clock wound. I hadn't been shown how. Behind the desk, in the drawer with the rule paper, I found a small key tied to a tag that said clock. I took it to the front doors and opened the glass face. The moment I touched the clock, the lobby lights flickered. Just once. I froze. Then they steadied. I told myself it was old wiring. I wound the clock until the key resisted, closed the glass, and stepped back. The pendulum started swinging. That was all. A clock needed winding. A light flickered when the boiler kicked on. There was nothing strange about that. I wrote in the log, 1:47 a.m., wound lobby clock. Then I sat behind the desk and felt stupid for being nervous. The first incident happened at 2:06. I was checking the cameras. Parking lot empty. Front entrance empty. Lobby camera showed me behind the desk, looking down at the monitor. East hall empty. West hall empty. Kitchen door closed. Boiler hall empty. Lift house. I stopped. Camera 8 was snowy, like Wade said it could be. The image was grainy and dark. I could make out the outline of the old lift house at the base of the mountain, a square building half buried in snow. There was a light on inside. Not bright. Just a weak yellow glow through one narrow window. I leaned closer. The rule came back to me before I moved. If camera 8 shows the lift house lights on, turn the monitor away and do not check again for 13 minutes. I looked toward the front windows. Outside, the real mountain was invisible behind snow and darkness. The lift house sat maybe 200 yards away, past the parking lot and up a small rise. I could not see it from the lobby. The logical part of my brain said the camera was glitching, maybe reflecting some light. Maybe an animal had knocked something loose. Maybe there was a maintenance lamp on a timer. But I still turned the monitor around. The screen faced the wall. I checked the time on my phone. 2:07. Then I waited. 13 minutes is a strange amount of time when you are trying not to think about something. 10 minutes would have felt official. 15 would have felt cautious. 13 felt personal. I stood behind the desk and listened to the building. At first, nothing changed. Then, from somewhere above the lobby, I heard a faint metallic clank. Like a ski lift cable moving. I looked up. The sound came again. Clank. A pause. Clank. Outside, the wind pushed snow against the windows. The old lift hadn't run in years. Wade told me the motor had been removed. There were no chairs on the lower cable anymore, just the towers and the line. Clank. The sound stopped. I looked at the time. 2:19. I waited one more minute because I didn't trust myself. At 2:20, I turned the monitor back. Camera 8 showed the lift house dark. No light. No movement. Only the white static of falling snow. I almost laughed again. Almost. Then the radio cracked. It was sudden and loud enough that I flinched. At midnight, I went to the boiler room, wrote down the gauges, and came back up. Everything was fine. By 1:30, I was getting sleepy. Not falling asleep sleepy. Just heavy around the eyes. I made bad coffee in the staff room and walked laps around the lobby. I looked at the old fireplace. I looked at the covered couches. I looked at the antlers above the desk. Then I noticed the lobby clock. It hung above the front doors. Big round face, brass pendulum, dark wood case. It looked older than the lodge. The time was 1:43 a.m. The second hand moved. The pendulum didn't. I stared at it for longer than I should have, then remembered the first rule. Keep the lobby clock wound. I hadn't been shown how. Behind the desk, in the drawer with the rule paper, I found a small key tied to a tag that said clock. I took it to the front doors and opened the glass face. The moment I touched the clock, the lobby lights flickered. Just once. I froze. Then they steadied. I told myself it was old wiring. I wound the clock until the key resisted, closed the glass, and stepped back. The pendulum started swinging. That was all. A clock needed winding. A light flickered when the boiler kicked on. There was nothing strange about that. I wrote in the log. 1:47 a.m., wound lobby clock. Then I sat behind the desk and felt stupid for being nervous. The first incident happened at 2:06. I was checking the cameras. Parking lot empty. Front entrance empty. Lobby camera showed me behind the desk, looking down at the monitor. East hall empty. West hall empty. Kitchen door closed. Boiler hall empty. Lift house. I stopped. Camera 8 was snowy, like Wade said it could be. The image was grainy and dark. I could make out the outline of the old lift house at the base of the mountain, a square building half buried in snow. There was a light on inside. Not bright. Just a weak yellow glow through one narrow window. I leaned closer. The rule came back to me before I moved. If camera 8 shows the lift house lights on, turn the monitor away and do not check again for 13 minutes. I looked toward the front windows. Outside, the real mountain was invisible behind snow and darkness. The lift house sat maybe 200 yards away, past the parking lot and up a small rise. I could not see it from the lobby. The logical part of my brain said the camera was glitching, maybe reflecting some light. Maybe an animal had knocked something loose. Maybe there was a maintenance lamp on a timer. But I still turned the monitor around. The screen faced the wall. I checked the time on my phone. 2:07. Then I waited. 13 minutes is a strange amount of time when you are trying not to think about something. 10 minutes would have felt official. 15 would have felt cautious. 13 felt personal. I stood behind the desk and listened to the building. At first, nothing changed. Then, from somewhere above the lobby, I heard a faint metallic clank, like a ski lift cable moving. I looked up. The sound came again. Clank. A pause. Clank. Outside, the wind pushed snow against the windows. The old lift hadn't run in years. Wade told me the motor had been removed. There were no chairs on the lower cable anymore, just the towers and the line. Clank. The sound stopped. I looked at the time. 2:19. I waited one more minute because I didn't trust myself. At 2:20, I turned the monitor back. Camera 8 showed the lift house dark. No light. No movement. Only the white static of falling snow. I almost laughed again. Almost. Then the radio cracked. It was sudden and loud enough that I flinched. The base unit sat to my right, green light glowing. It hissed for 2 seconds. Then a voice said, "Front desk." It was a man's voice. Flat. Low. Buried under static. I stared at the radio. Harlan had told me the radio reached his staff cabin, the maintenance truck, and the Ranger repeater. He had not told me what to say. I picked up the mic. "This is front desk," I said. Static. Then the voice said, "Aaron?" I didn't move. Just Aaron. Not my full name. I pressed the button again. "Who is this?" There was a long hiss. Then, clearer this time, the voice said, "Can you see the lift?" I put the mic down. I didn't answer. The radio hissed for another few seconds, then clicked off. I sat there with my hands still near the mic. I told myself it was Wade. It had to be Wade. He knew my name. He knew the rules. He knew about Camera 8. Maybe he was sitting in his car down the road, using some handheld radio, trying to make my first night memorable. That explanation worked for about 3 minutes. Then the printer behind the desk turned on. It was an old receipt printer attached to the computer. Wade said it used to print guest folios and meal tickets back when the restaurant was open. It wasn't supposed to do anything now. It whirred once and spat out a thin strip of paper. I waited. The printer stopped. I tore the paper off. At the top, in faded black letters, it said, "Black Pines Lodge. Night order." Under that, 2:23 a.m. Hot coffee, 1. Black. Then, room 214. I read it several times. Room 214. Rule 4. If a guest asks for room 214, tell them once that the lodge is closed. Do not say it twice. Nobody had asked for anything. There was no guest. There wasn't even a restaurant anymore. I crumpled the paper without meaning to, then smoothed it back out and put it in the log binder. I didn't mention it to anyone. That was another mistake, maybe. But at the time, I didn't want to be the new guy who got scared by a printer glitch and a radio prank. I needed the job. I needed Harlan to think I could handle nights alone. So I sat there until sunrise. Nothing else happened. At 6:45, Harlan came in through the side door carrying a thermos and smelling like cigarette smoke. He nodded at me. "First night?" "Fine," I said. He looked at the log. His finger paused on the clock entry. Then he turned the page. "You wound it?" "Yeah. Found the key." He grunted. I waited for him to mention the printer receipt. He didn't. Maybe he hadn't seen it. Maybe he had. When Wade picked me up in the parking lot, I pulled him aside. "Funny," I said. "What?" "The radio." He looked confused. I watched his face carefully. He was either a better liar than I thought, or he had no idea. "What radio?" "Last night. Somebody called the desk." "What did they say?" I almost told him. Instead I said, "Nothing. Just static." Wade looked toward the lodge. Then he said, "Don't answer if it uses your full name." "I know." "No," he said. "You read that part. That's different from knowing." I asked him about room 214. He rubbed his jaw and looked at the snow. "You didn't open anything, did you?" "No." "You didn't go upstairs?" "No." "Good. What is room 214? He gave me that same fake grin. "Probably mold now." Then he got in his car. I should have quit after the first night. I know that now. But fear has to compete with rent, and rent usually wins. My second shift was worse because I knew what to listen for. That's the thing about a place like Black Pines. On the first night, every sound is new, so you can explain them all as the building's settling. By the second night, you start sorting them. Normal pipe knock above the lobby. Normal wind under the east door. Normal hum from the vending machine. Normal click from the thermostat. Not normal. 3 slow footsteps in the west hall when the camera showed it empty. Not normal. The radio lighting up without sound at exactly 1:12. Not normal. A wet spot on the floor by the front desk when nobody had come inside. I arrived at 7 p.m. and found Harlan in the office behind the desk, fixing a drawer handle. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Storm tonight," he said. "Worse than last night?" "Different." I wasn't sure what that meant. Wade wasn't there. He had left a note on the monitor. "Don't watch camera 8 too long. It makes it easier for them to notice you." I folded the note and put it in my pocket. Harlan came out of the office and handed me a set of keys. "Office door sticks," he said. "Lock it if you need to." I thought about Rule 6. If you see fresh snow tracked inside but no one on camera too, lock the office door and count backward from 100. "Who else works nights?" I asked. "No one." "Who wrote the rules?" Harlan finally looked at me. For a moment I thought he might answer. Then he said, "People who wanted to go home." He left before dark. The storm arrived around 10. Snow hit the front windows in hard bursts. The building creaked more than usual. The parking lot camera blurred in and out as wind shook it. At midnight, I went downstairs and took the boiler readings. On the way back up, I heard music. Very faint. Not from above me. Not from the lobby. From the west side of the building. It sounded like an old piano. A few notes, slow and clumsy, like someone picking out a song with one finger. I stopped halfway up the stairs. The boiler room door was open at the top. Beyond it, the kitchen was dark. The music played again. 4 notes. Pause. 4 notes. I didn't recognize the tune. I knew the rule. Do not follow music coming from the west wing. I went back to the front desk. I did not walk toward the west hall. I did not check the red fire door. I did not look through the small wired glass windows set into it. But I did check camera 5. West hallway empty. The red fire door at the far end was closed. The camera had no audio, but as I watched, the music grew louder. That should not have been possible. The monitors showed a silent hallway. The lodge around me filled with soft piano notes. They were coming from everywhere now. Through the walls. Under the floor. Inside the old fireplace. I turned the volume down on the radio, even though the sound was not coming from it. Then the tune changed. It became something I didn't know. My mother used to hum it when she cooked. Not a song exactly. Just a little melody she made up when she was tired. I hadn't thought about it in years. The piano played it perfectly. Slow. Careful. Like it had been practicing. I stood behind the desk with my hands flat on the counter. I told myself Wade had mentioned my mother somehow. Maybe I had hummed it once without realizing. Maybe it was a common tune and I was making the connection because I was scared. That would have made sense, except I had never heard that melody anywhere outside my mother's kitchen. The music stopped at 12:28. I wrote nothing in the log. At 1:03, the front doors rattled. Not from wind. Someone had pulled the handle. I looked at camera 2. The front entrance camera showed the covered porch and the double doors from outside. No one stood there. The handles moved again. A slow pull. Then a push. Then 3 knocks on the glass. I looked directly at the doors. They were 40 feet from the desk. Through the tall panes, I saw only darkness and snow. No face. No body. The knocks came again. 3. Then 3 more, lower on the door. Like someone was kneeling. I turned back to the camera. Empty porch. The rule about snow tracks came to mind even though I hadn't seen tracks yet. I grabbed the office key and moved behind the desk. The knocking stopped. The lobby went very quiet. I kept watching the camera. After maybe 30 seconds, the front doors opened. Only a few inches. Cold air moved across the lobby floor. Snow blew in. I stared. I know I had locked those doors. I had checked them at 10 during my walk. Deadbolt chain, lower latch. All set. The doors stayed open. No one entered. Then the doors slowly closed. The latch clicked. On the lobby camera, which showed the inside of the room, I saw something the naked eye had not shown me. A line of wet footprints began at the front doors. They crossed the lobby carpet. They stopped in front of the desk. I looked down. There they were. Fresh snow melting into the carpet. Boot prints. Large. Pointing toward me. I raised my eyes to the real lobby. There was nothing standing there. The office door was 6 feet behind me. I moved slowly, not taking my eyes off the empty space in front of the desk. The footprints did not move. I stepped into the office and pulled the door shut. It stuck. For one awful second, it would not close. Then the wood gave and the latch caught. I locked it. Count backward from 100. I didn't understand why. I didn't know why it mattered yet. But I started counting. 100, I whispered. There was a sound outside the office door. Not footsteps. Breathing. 99. The breathing came closer to the crack at the bottom of the door. 98. Something wet touched the other side. 97. A voice said very softly, "Aaron?" It sounded like Wade. I stopped counting. Only for a second. Then I remembered the paper did not say to answer. It said count backward. 96. The voice changed. "Aaron, open up. It's freezing." It still sounded like Wade, but not exactly. It was missing something. The rhythm was right. The tone was right. But the words had no breath behind them. 95. The door handle moved. Slowly at first. Then harder. 94. Aaron Bell. My stomach dropped. Full name. The radio rules said not to answer if the caller uses your full name. This wasn't the radio. But I didn't answer anyway. 93. The thing outside the office door began to count with me. Not in Wade's voice. In mine. 92, I whispered. 92, it whispered back. 91. 91. It matched me exactly. Same tired voice. Same slight rasp from coffee. Same breath. I almost stopped again because hearing your own voice from the other side of a door does something bad to your thoughts. It makes you feel like you are the one in the wrong place. I kept going. By 60, the handle stopped moving. By 40, the breathing faded. By 20, the lobby sounded normal again. When I reached 0, I waited another full minute before opening the office door. The footprints were still there. But now they faced the other way. Back toward the front entrance. The front doors were locked. On camera 2, the porch was empty. On camera 3, the lobby camera showed me standing in the office doorway. Behind me, in the dark office, someone else stood with their hand on my shoulder. I spun around. No one was there. I slept badly the next day. I tried to call Wade twice and got voicemail both times. I thought about quitting. I even wrote a text to Harlan saying I wasn't coming back. I deleted it before sending. The money was part of it. But there was another reason I went back. I wanted to understand the rules. That sounds stupid, and maybe it was. But when something impossible happens and then stops because of a rule, the rule becomes a kind of comfort. It makes the impossible feel organized. It makes you think there is a system, and if there is a system, maybe you can survive it. That's how the place gets you, I think. Not by scaring you away. By making you believe you can learn it. On my third shift, Wade came early. He was waiting in the lobby when I arrived, sitting on the edge of the covered couch nearest the fireplace. Harlan was nowhere around. Wade looked worse than I had ever seen him. His eyes were red. His hair was unwashed. He held a paper coffee cup in both hands but didn't drink from it. "You saw tracks," he said. It wasn't a question. I took off my gloves. "You knew this would happen." "I knew something would happen. And you still got me the job." He looked at the floor. "I needed someone who follows instructions." I laughed once. "You needed someone desperate." He didn't deny it. I wanted to hit him. I really did. But he looked so tired that my anger had nowhere to go. "What is this place?" I asked. Wade shook his head. "Don't ask that. I'm asking. I don't know." "That's not good enough. It's the only true answer." He looked toward the west hallway. "Harlan says the lodge was built wrong. Not construction wrong. Location wrong. Like they put it somewhere people weren't supposed to stay overnight. That's ridiculous." "I know. Then why are you saying it?" "Because ridiculous things keep happening." We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked him about room 214. His face changed. Not fear exactly. Guilt. "Did someone ask for it?" "No. Printer printed an order." His mouth tightened. "What did it say?" "Hot coffee. Room 214. Did you make coffee?" "No." "Good. What happens if I do?" He shook his head again. "Don't feed habits." That phrase bothered me. "What does that mean?" "It means if they ask for something and you give it, they ask again. If they knock and you open, they knock sooner next time. If they use a voice and you answer, they keep it." I thought about my voice counting outside the office door. Wade must have seen something on my face. "Did it use yours?" I didn't answer. He closed his eyes. "Sorry," he said. It was the first honest thing he had said since calling me about the job. Before he left, he added one more thing. "Harlan won't tell you this, but the rules change." Not the paper. The meaning. Don't assume the first way you understand a rule is the right one. I asked him what that meant. He looked toward the bar. The lodge had an old bar area off the left side of the lobby, shuttered and dusty, with stools stacked upside down on the counter. Behind it was a long mirror, cloudy with age. Rule 7. At 4:33 a.m., do not look at the mirror behind the bar, no matter who you think is standing in it. Wade said, especially that one. Then he left. That night, Harlan showed up at 7:15 and told me the road might close by morning. Snowplow's having trouble below the gate, he said. If it gets bad, stay until I relieve you. Stay how long? As long as it takes. He said it like we were talking about a late bus. I asked him if Wade had told him what happened. Wade talks too much. That doesn't answer my question. Harlan stared at me for a long time. Then he said, You're still here, so you must have done something right. Or I got lucky. Luck doesn't last here. He went into the office, checked the key cabinet, and left through the side door. That shift started normally. I made coffee, checked the locks, wound the clock early, just in case. Changed the order of my hourly camera checks. Camera 6 first, then 2, then 7, then 1. The bottom of the rule sheet had said they learn routines. Change small things when you can. It felt childish at first. Like switching the order of cameras could matter. But at 9:41, while I was checking camera 7 before camera 3, something moved through the lobby. I saw it only on the small preview box for camera 3. A dark shape passed behind the front desk. Behind me. I turned around so fast I hit my hip on the counter. Nothing. The lobby was empty. On the monitor, camera 3 now showed the same. I saved no footage. The system didn't have that option, at least not one Wade had shown me. I wrote, camera glitch, in the log, then scratched it out. At 11:16, the landline rang. That was new. The phone was beige, heavy, and old enough to have a curled cord. Wade told me it worked only for internal lines and emergencies. No one had used it during my first 2 shifts. It rang 3 times. I let it ring. On the 4th ring, I picked up. Front desk. There was quiet on the line. Not static. Quiet. Then a woman said, Can you transfer me to room 214, please? I looked at the rule paper on the desk. If a guest asks for room 214, tell them once that the lodge is closed. Do not say it twice. My mouth had gone dry. The lodge is closed, I said. The woman waited. Then she said, I know. I said nothing. I just need the room. I set the phone down without hanging up. The receiver lay on the desk, open line humming. From it came the soft sound of someone breathing. I left it there. At midnight, I had to go to the boiler room. I considered skipping it. But Harlan had been clear about the gauges, and the idea of the boiler failing while I was alone in a mountain lodge scared me in a normal way. Normal fear still mattered. So I picked up the flashlight and walked through the kitchen. The landline receiver was still off the hook when I left the desk. I could hear the faint hum from across the lobby. The boiler room was warm and loud. I wrote the readings quickly. As I turned to leave, the emergency phone on the wall rang. Not the front desk landline. The red phone in the boiler room. It rang once. Then again. I stared at it. There were no rules about the emergency phone. That made it worse. The phone rang a 3rd time. I picked it up because some part of me still believed emergency phones existed for emergencies. Hello? At first I heard wind. Then Harlan's voice. Aaron, you need to come outside. I gripped the phone tighter. Harlan? Boiler vents blocked. South side. Bring the shovel from the kitchen door. His voice sounded normal. Irritated. Practical. Why didn't you radio? Radio's dead. I looked at the boiler gauges. They were normal. You're outside? Yes. In this storm? For God's sake, just come out and help me. I almost did. That is the part one still think about. There was no rule against going outside for Harlan. There was no rule against answering the emergency phone. The request made sense. Vents could get blocked by snow. Harlan was old, but stubborn enough to handle it himself until he couldn't. I moved toward the stairs. Then he said, "Hurry, Aaron Bell." Full name. Not radio. Phone. But full name. I put the receiver back slowly. It rang again before my hand left it. I walked upstairs without looking back. When I reached the front desk, the landline receiver was back in its cradle. I had not put it there. At 1:30 the cameras went out. All 8 screens turned black at the same time. The monitor still had power. The little green light glowed at the bottom. But every feed showed nothing. I tried the keyboard. I checked the cables. I restarted the monitor. Nothing changed. The lodge without cameras felt completely different. With them, I could pretend I had control. I could see the parking lot, the doors, the empty halls. Without them, the building became a set of blind corners and closed doors. I decided not to do my 2 a.m. walk. I wrote in the log, 1:37 a.m., cameras offline. Then under it, remaining at desk. At 2:17, the clock stopped. I didn't notice right away. I was watching the black monitor screens, waiting for them to come back. Then the lobby went quiet in a way I felt more than heard. The tick stopped. The pendulum stopped. I looked up. The clock above the entrance read 2:17. Rule 1. Keep the lobby clock wound. If it stops at 2:17 a.m., do not leave the front desk until it starts again. I was already at the front desk. That should have been fine. Then the radio clicked on. "Aaron," Wade's voice said. I didn't answer. "Aaron, listen to me." The rules said full name, not first name. I still didn't answer. The radio hissed. Then Wade said, "I'm outside. I need you to open the side door." I closed my eyes. This was not difficult. I knew it was not Wade. Wade was not outside. Wade would not come up during a storm at 2 in the morning. Then the radio said, "I'm sorry I got you into this." That hurt because it sounded exactly like him. Not the fake version from the office door. This had breath. Shame. Fear. "I thought you could handle it," the voice said. "I thought if you made it a week, Harlan would move me off the call list. I'm sorry." My hand moved toward the mic. I stopped it. The clock was still stopped. The rule did not say not to answer the radio at 2:17. It said do not leave the front desk. But another rule said not to answer if the caller used my full name. He hadn't. I leaned back in the chair and put both hands under my thighs like a child stopping himself from touching something hot. "Aaron," Wade's voice said, quieter now. "Please. I can see the lobby clock from here." It stopped. I looked toward the front windows. Snow covered the glass in shifting white sheets. No one could see the clock from outside. Not in that storm. Not from anywhere. The voice changed. It became my mother. "Aaron, sweetheart, pick up." I stood so fast the chair rolled backward and hit the wall. My mother was alive. She was in her apartment 3 hours away. She did not know this radio existed. "Aaron," the radio said. "I'm scared." It was not theatrical. It was not some monster voice pretending badly. It was my mother on one of her bad days, when pain made her sound small and embarrassed. I stepped toward the radio. The clock remained at 2:17. The rule came back. Do not leave the front desk. I was still behind it, but barely. I did not know if leaning over the radio counted as leaving. I did not know if answering counted. I backed away until my shoulders touched the office door. The radio hissed. Then my mother said my full name. Aaron Michael Bell. I had never told Wade my middle name. The clock started ticking again at 2:31. The cameras came back at 2:32. All 8 feeds returned at once. Camera 1 showed the parking lot buried in snow. Camera 2 showed the empty entrance. Camera 3 showed the lobby. I was behind the desk. But the clock above the door was not there on the camera. On the screen, above the entrance, there was only a dark rectangle on the wall where the clock should have been. I turned and looked with my own eyes. The clock was there, ticking normally. On camera 3, it was gone. I didn't write that in the log. I didn't write anything else that night. By my 4th shift, I stopped thinking of the rules as a joke. I carried them in my shirt pocket. I checked them before doing anything unusual. I stopped wearing earbuds. I stopped making coffee after midnight because of the receipt. I stopped looking directly at the bar mirror unless I knew the time. I changed small things. Sometimes I checked cameras every 47 minutes instead of every hour. Sometimes I walked the East Hall before the kitchen. Sometimes I wound the clock at 8:13 or 9:02 or 11:26. It made me feel smart. That was another mistake. The lodge noticed. I don't know how else to say it. On the 5th night, the building began changing small things back. I put my coffee mug on the right side of the desk. When I looked again, it was on the left. I opened the night log to a blank page. 10 minutes later, it was open to my first shift. I locked the office door and put the key in my pocket. When I reached for it later, the key was in the drawer under the rules. None of those things were frightening by themselves. That made them worse. A chair flying across the room would have sent me running. A mug moved 6 inches made me stay and stare and doubt my memory. That same night, someone checked in. Not physically. The old computer woke up at 12:44. The screen had been dark. Then it blinked on and showed the property management program. A new guest entry appeared. Last name Bell. First name Aaron. Room 214. Arrival today. Departure none. Status in-house. I stood there for a long time. Then I clicked cancel. A message appeared. Guest already checked in. I tried to close the program. The mouse froze. The receipt printer whirred. A strip of paper came out. Black Pines Lodge. Room key encoded. Room 214. Bell Aaron. The key machine behind the desk clicked. I didn't even know it had power. A plastic keycard slid halfway out. It was white with the faded Black Pines logo. I did not touch it. The computer made a soft ding. A note appeared under the guest's profile. Welcome back, Mr. Bell. That was when I called Harlan. I used the radio first. Harlan, this is front desk. Static. Then Harlan answered. Go. I need you to come up here. Why? The computer checked me into room 214. Silence. Harlan? Did you take the key? No. Good. What do I do? Same thing you do with any guest who asks for 214. The guest is me. No, Harlan said. It isn't. Then the line went dead. A minute later, The side door opened and Harlan came in wearing his coat over pajamas and unlaced boots. He walked behind the desk, took one look at the screen, and shut the monitor off. Not the computer, just the monitor. Then he took the keycard without touching it directly, using a folded handkerchief from his pocket, and placed it in a metal cash box under the desk. Inside that box were other keycards. A lot of them. Some were yellow with age. Some had names written on them in marker. I saw Wade's name on one. I also saw Harlan's. He closed the box and locked it. "What is going on?" I asked. Harlan looked older than he had at the diner. "Don't sleep here," he said. "I don't. I mean, don't let it assign you a room. It already did." "No," he said. "It tried." I waited. He sighed and rubbed his face. There were rooms people stayed in back when the lodge was open. Real rooms. Paid rooms. Honeymoon rooms. Family rooms. Staff rooms. Room 214 burned in 1983. I thought you said water damage. I say a lot of things so people don't ask stupid questions at bad times. What happened in 1983? Fire started in the West Wing during a storm. 6 guests trapped upstairs. 2 staff went in after them. Part of the hall collapsed. People died? Yes. In room 214? Harlan looked toward the bar mirror, then away. There was no room 214 after the renovation. They removed that section. Changed the numbering. But the system kept it for years because the old software wouldn't delete occupied rooms correctly. That's impossible. It is now. He took the night log and flipped back through pages. Many were written in hands I didn't recognize. Dates went back years. Some entries were normal. Pressure reading. East door iced. Camera 6 offline. Others were not. 1212, guests requesting 214 again. Refused once. 145, music from West. Did not follow. 217, clock stopped. Remained at desk. 302, snow tracks from inside office to lobby. No entry seen. 433, covered mirror. Covered mirror. I looked toward the bar. The mirror behind it was uncovered. Harlan followed my gaze. "Don't get clever," he said. "What?" "You're thinking cover it." I wasn't. But I was. "If a rule says don't look," Harlan said, "it doesn't always mean seeing is the danger. Sometimes trying not to see tells them you know where to look." That was the most frightening thing he had said to me, because it almost made sense. He left after that. I asked him why anyone kept the lodge staffed. He stood near the side door with his hand on the handle. "Because when no one is here," he said, "it reaches farther." Then he went back into the storm. For a while after that, the shifts became routine again. Not normal. Never normal. But routine. I learned the rhythm of Black Pines. The first hour was always quiet. Between 9 and 11, it tested small things. A chair moved. A camera flickered. The back door clicked. The printer woke but didn't print. Midnight was for sounds from places I shouldn't go. Music in the West Wing. Footsteps above. Once, laughter from the old dining room, soft and polite, like a table of guests trying not to disturb anyone. After 2 a.m., it became personal. The radio liked voices. My mother. Wade. Once, my own voice at age 17, asking if Dad was coming home. My father died when I was 18. He had gone off the road during a snowstorm coming back from Helena. They found his truck the next morning, half buried in a ditch. I never told anyone at Black Pines about that. But the lodge knew. At 3:08 on my 8th shift, camera 1 showed his truck in the parking lot. Same blue Ford. Same cracked right headlight. Same bumper sticker from a bait shop that closed 10 years ago. It sat under the snow, engine running, exhaust rising into the dark. I could even see the dent near the rear wheel. I stood up so suddenly my chair fell over. The front doors were locked. The parking lot was empty when I looked through the windows. On camera 1, my father's truck idled 20 feet from the entrance. The driver's door opened. I turned the monitor off. There was no rule for that. I did it anyway. For the rest of that night, someone sat in the lobby near the fireplace, just outside the edge of my vision. I never looked directly. I heard his coat shift. I heard him clear his throat. I smelled the wintergreen gum he used to chew. At 4:33, I looked at the floor and did not look at the bar mirror. The person near the fireplace whispered, "You've gotten taller." I kept my eyes down until 4:34. In the morning, I found wet tire tracks in the parking lot. They came from the entrance road, circled once, and stopped in the middle of the lot. They did not leave. Harlan saw them too. He stood beside me in the dawn light, hands in his coat pockets. "Don't give it grief," he said. I looked at him. "What?" "It uses what's heavy." I wanted to quit every morning. Every morning I drove down the service road and told myself I was done. Then I would sleep badly, wake up in the afternoon, check my bank account, and go back. Fear competed with rent. Rent kept winning. But there was something else by then. I hate admitting this. Part of me wanted to beat it, not defeat it. That would be too big a word. I just wanted to finish my shifts without breaking. I wanted to prove Wade had been right about one thing, that I could handle it. The lodge noticed that too. On my 10th night, it stopped trying to scare me. That was worse. The shift was calm. No music. No radio calls. No snow tracks. No printer. At midnight, boiler readings were normal. At 2:17, the clock kept ticking. At 4:33, the bar mirror reflected only the dark lobby and the stacked stools. I went home feeling almost disappointed. The next night was the same. So was the next. 3 quiet shifts in a row. I started to understand the false normal Wade had warned me about without calling it that. After fear, calm does not feel safe. It feels like bait. On the 4th quiet shift, Harlan told me he was driving into town for parts and might not be in the staff cabin. "You'll have radio?" "Maybe." "What if something happens?" He looked at me. "Something always happens." That night, I was completely alone at Black Pines. No Harlan in the cabin. No Wade on call. No plow driver. No one within miles. The weather was clear for once. Moonlight lit the parking lot blue. The lodge looked less dead under a clean sky, almost peaceful. I checked the cameras at 8:30. All clear. At 9:15, I walked the ground floor. Nothing. At 10:40, I made coffee and drank it even though I had told myself I wouldn't after midnight. At 11:30, I wound the clock. At midnight, I took the boiler readings. Normal. When I came back to the lobby, there was a man standing at the front desk. Not on camera. In the lobby. He wore a brown winter coat, dark slacks, and no hat. His hair was wet, combed flat to his head. Snow melted on his shoulders. He looked maybe 40. Pale, tired, ordinary. For one stupid second, I thought he was real. Then I saw the front doors were still locked. No tracks behind him. No movement on camera too. He stood with both hands on the counter like a traveler waiting to check in. I stopped at the edge of the lobby. He turned his head and looked at me. "Evening," he said. His voice was quiet and polite. I said nothing. He smiled faintly. "Long drive." I stayed where I was. There was no rule for a man already inside, unless he asked for the room. "I have a reservation," he said. I moved behind the desk because that was where the rules were. That was where I felt safest. The man watched me. "What name?" I asked. I don't know why I said that. Routine, maybe. Work habits are hard to break. He smiled wider. "Bell." My fingers went cold. The old computer screen turned on. The property program opened. Guest search, Bell. One result. Room 214. The man leaned forward slightly. "I believe you have my key." Under the desk, the metal cash box made a soft clicking sound. I did not look down. "The lodge is closed," I said. "Once." The man's smile faded. "I know." I said nothing else. His eyes moved over my face like he was reading something written there. Then he stepped back. "Your father was polite," he said. I gripped the edge of the desk. "He said please." I kept my mouth shut. "He asked twice?" The lobby clock ticked loudly. The man turned toward the west hallway. "The second time is what opened it." He walked away from the desk. Not toward the front doors. Toward the red fire door. I watched him go because the rules said not to follow music, not people. He reached the west hall. Camera 5 showed the hallway empty. My eyes saw him standing at the red door. The camera saw nothing. He placed one hand on the padlock. It opened and fell to the floor. The sound echoed through the lobby. The red fire door swung inward. Beyond it was darkness. And music. Soft piano notes. The man looked back at me. "Still closed?" he asked. I did not answer. He went through the door. It closed behind him. The padlock lay on the floor in the hallway, visible from where I stood. On camera 5, the padlock was still hanging on the door. Closed. Locked. I understood then that the cameras did not show truth. They showed agreement. They showed the lodge as long as you were willing to agree with it. At 1:05, the printer produced another strip. Hot coffee, 1. Black. Room 214. Under it. Please. I did not make coffee. At 1:22, the landline rang. I did not answer. At 1:41, the radio clicked. Aaron Michael Bell, my father's voice said. Full name. I did not answer. At 2:17, the clock stopped. This time, all the lights went out. The lobby fell into darkness except for the monitor glow and moonlight through the windows. The clock face was pale above the doors. 2:17. The rules said do not leave the desk until it starts again. I stayed. In the darkness, the lodge sounded huge. Bigger than it was. Doors opened somewhere upstairs. Not one door. Many. Hinges creaking one after another down a long hall. Footsteps moved overhead. A lot of them. Slow at first. Then faster. Then running. The old floorboards above the lobby shook with it. People running in rooms that no longer existed. A woman shouted. A child cried. A man coughed hard, over and over. Then came the smell. Smoke. Not strong. Just enough. Old smoke soaked into wood. The monitor flickered. Camera 4 showed the East Hall. Empty. Camera 5 showed the West Hall. The red fire door was open on the camera now. Beyond it, the hallway continued far longer than it should have. Doors lined both sides. Their numbers were small brass plates. The camera feed moved. Not like a fixed camera. Like someone carrying it. It advanced down the west hall toward room 214. I grabbed the sides of the monitor. I tried to turn it away, but the base stuck to the desk as if bolted. On screen, the viewpoint stopped in front of room 214. The door was dark wood with a brass handle. Smoke curled from underneath. The handle turned. I shut my eyes. The radio screamed with static. The clock started ticking. The lights came back on. I opened my eyes. The monitor showed 8 normal camera feeds. West Hall closed. Padlock in place. No smoke. No people. No room 214. I threw up in the trash can behind the desk. At 4:33, I did not look at the mirror. But I heard something behind the bar. Glass clinking. A bottle being set down. A stool scraping. Then Wade's voice said, "He told you the second time opened it, didn't he?" I kept my eyes on the floor. I didn't know if this was Wade or not. The voice sighed. "That's what I thought too." My eyes stayed down. The mirror was behind the bar. The voice came from behind the bar. The rules said not to look at the mirror, no matter who you think is standing in it. It did not say not to talk. But I had learned enough by then to know rules leave gaps on purpose. The voice continued. "The room isn't what wants in." I stared at the floorboards. "It's what wants out." At 4:34 I looked up. The bar was empty. The mirror reflected me behind the front desk. For a moment I thought I had made it. Then I noticed something wrong. In the mirror, the red fire door was open. In the real lobby behind me, it was closed. I turned around. Closed. I looked back at the mirror before I could stop myself. In the reflection, a line of people stood in the west hallway. They were far away, blurred by smoke. Their heads were turned toward the lobby. Toward me. One of them lifted a hand. Not waving. Pointing. I dropped behind the desk and stayed there until sunrise. Harlan came back at 7:20. He found me sitting on the floor with my back against the drawers. He didn't ask if I was okay. He looked at the bar mirror, then at the west hall, then at the clock. "What happened?" I told him. "Not all of it. Enough." When I mentioned the mirror, he closed his eyes. "You looked. After 4:34. You looked because of what was in it." I didn't answer. He sat down heavily in the chair. For the first time, Harlan looked afraid. "What did you see?" "People." "How many?" "I don't know." "Did any touch the glass?" "No." "Did any speak?" "No." He exhaled slowly. "Then maybe it's fine." Maybe. I hated that word. I asked him what the mirror rule really meant. He didn't want to tell me. I could see that. Then he said, "People think it's about not seeing something behind you." That's what I thought. It isn't. He looked toward the bar. It's about not being seen looking. I didn't understand. He rubbed his eyes. The mirror doesn't show you them. It shows them you. That was the rule that changed meaning. All those nights, I thought I had been avoiding a reflection for my own sake. Avoiding a scare. Avoiding some figure behind me. But the danger wasn't that I might see something. The danger was that something might notice me seeing it. After that I quit. At least I tried. I told Harlan I was done. I said I couldn't come back. I said whatever was happening at Black Pines was not worth the money. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, "I'll put your final check in the mail." That was it. No argument. No threat. No guilt. That should have been the end. I drove home in daylight and slept 12 hours. When I woke up, Wade was sitting on the steps outside my apartment. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "You quit?" he said. "Yes." He nodded. "Good. You don't sound relieved." "I am." "Then why are you here?" He held up his phone. On the screen was a photo. It showed the front desk at Black Pines. The night log was open. The timestamp in the corner said 4:33 a.m. I was standing behind the desk. But I had not worked that night. I was asleep in my apartment. The version of me in the photo was facing the bar mirror. Wade said, "Harlan sent me that this morning." I took the phone from him. The image was grainy, black and white, from camera 3. The lobby looked normal except for two things. The bar mirror was brighter than everything else, like it had light behind it. And my reflection in the mirror was not facing the same way as my body. In the room, I faced the mirror. In the mirror, my reflection faced the camera. It was smiling. I handed the phone back. "No," I said. Wade nodded like he understood. "I know. I wasn't there. I know." We sat on the steps for a long time. Then he said, "When I quit, they used my keycard 3 nights later. Harlan said as long as I didn't go back, it would stop." "Did it?" "For a while." "For a while?" Wade looked at the street. "Sometimes the radio picks me up." I didn't ask what that meant. He told me anyway. "I'll be driving. Middle of the day. No radio on. Then I hear myself calling front desk." A car passed on the road. Neither of us spoke until it was gone. Wade said, "Don't answer any unknown calls for a bit." I almost laughed. I didn't. Over the next week, nothing happened. No calls. No dreams. No strange noises outside my apartment. I got a temporary job unloading trucks at a hardware store. The pay was worse than Black Pines, but the lights were bright and there were always people around. I started to believe distance mattered. Then my final check arrived. It was in a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a check for the correct amount and a folded piece of paper. Not the rules. A receipt. Black Pines Lodge. Room service. 4:33 a.m. Hot coffee, 1. Black. Room 214. At the bottom, in small printed letters. Delivered by Aaron Bell. I burned it in my kitchen sink. That night, I dreamed I was walking down the west hallway. Not running. Not scared. Just walking like I knew where I was going. The hall was warm and smoky. Old carpet under my feet. Brass numbers on doors. I stopped in front of the room. From inside, someone knocked. Not on the door. Under the floorboards. 3 knocks. Then my own voice said, "The lodge is closed." A pause. Then my own voice said it again. I woke up with my phone ringing. Unknown number. I didn't answer. The ringing stopped. A voicemail appeared. I stared at it for almost a minute before playing it. There was static first. Then the hum of old lobby lights. Then a ticking clock. Then Harlan's voice. He sounded tired. "Aaron, I know you quit. I know you don't owe me anything. But Wade isn't answering, and I can't leave the desk." A pause. In the background, faint piano music played. Harlan breathed into the phone. "It learned your routine faster than most. I should have warned you about that." Another pause. Then he said, "If anyone calls using your full name, don't answer." The message ended. I deleted it. Then I turned off my phone. For 2 days I kept it off. On the 3rd day, my mother called my apartment manager because she couldn't reach me and got worried. I turned the phone back on after that. I told myself I couldn't live like a paranoid idiot forever. Nothing happened for another week. Then, last Thursday, I was leaving work at the hardware store just after sunset. The parking lot was wet from rain. Cars passed on the main road. Someone was pushing carts near the entrance. Normal sounds. Normal world. My truck was parked under a light near the back. As I walked toward it, I noticed snow on the ground. Not everywhere. Just around my driver's door. A thin patch of white snow, maybe 3 feet wide, melting on the asphalt. It was 46 degrees. It had rained all day. There was no snow anywhere else in town. On the driver's window, someone had written with a finger. 214. I stood there holding my keys. The parking lot light buzzed above me. Behind my reflection in the glass, I saw the lobby of Black Pines Lodge. Just for a second. The front desk. The clock. The bar mirror. And someone standing where I used to stand. I turned around. There was only the hardware store parking lot. People loading lumber. A cart rattling. Rainwater running along the curb. I wiped the number off the glass with my sleeve and got in my truck. The radio turned on by itself. Not the stereo. The old emergency weather band radio I keep under the dash. Static filled the cab. Then a voice said, "Front desk." I froze with my hand on the ignition. The voice waited. Then it said, "Front desk, this is Aaron Michael Bell." Full name. My own voice. Calm. Tired. A little disturbed. Exactly how I sound now. I did not answer. I drove home without turning the radio off because I was afraid touching it counted as something. It kept hissing all the way. Right before I pulled into my apartment lot, the static cleared. My voice came through again. It said, "I didn't think much of the rules when I first saw them." Then it laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because that was the only normal response it could think of. I haven't gone back to Black Pines. I don't plan to. Wade left town 3 days ago. He sent me one message before he changed his number. It said, "If you hear music, don't look for the source." I haven't heard from Harlan. The county road to the lodge is closed now because of a slide, according to the local news. They said no one was injured. They said the property was vacant. They always say that. I still have the original rule paper in my glove box. I checked it yesterday. There are 8 rules now. The new one is at the bottom, written in my handwriting. If someone tells you they survived Black Pines Lodge, do not ask them to prove it. I don't remember writing it. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, there was snow melting on the back seat.